Hi everyone, my name is Kajal Galotra and in this video we will be talking about records versus Lombok. Let's try to start it from the very beginning of everything. So this is my class by the name called person. In this person class I have two things. One is name and one is ID. This is the code for the parameterized constructor in which I am passing both name as well as ID. This is my default constructor. Then I have the getter of name, setter of name, then I have the getter of ID, setter of the ID, and then I have the toString method, or then I have hash code and equals method for the class. I have only two parameters, and with these two parameters I have almost 55 line of code, right? I have created one more class by the name called person with Lombok. In this I'll have the name of the person and I'll also have the ID of the person. Now instead of giving the constructors toString method everything, I'll just use the annotations provided by Lombok. For that I'll use no argument constructor, I'll have all argument constructor, then I toString method, and then I getters, setters, and equals and hash code, and that's it. For if you are using Lombok, then that is the code that you only have to write. Now this is my main class. Let's say my person name is John and his ID is 1, and I'll also create a person with Lombok person 2 and I'll pass the same name so that you can see exact things are getting printed. I'll try to print person 1 as well as a number 2. Now I'll just run this. And you can see the name is John, ID is 1, so both of them are exactly similar. Now let's come to the record. So I have created one record for this person class, and in this parenthesis I want name and ID to be there, and that's it for it. Now what I'll do, I'll go into my main class. Now I'll try to print system out println record. You can see everything is exactly same. I created a record, and in this record I'll just have to pass the name and ID. Everything will be automatically created. You know that with Lombok you can create things by providing some annotations, but whenever it comes to records you don't even have to provide any kind of annotation, which is a Java 14 feature. Now let's try to understand what exactly are the differences between the Lombok and records. I'll say person 1 dot set name, and now I want to change the name to John 1, and also I'll try to change the name person 2 dot set name, and I'll say John 2. I'll try to print person 1 and person 2. You can see that at the first the name was John, now the name has been set to John 1 for person 1 and person 2. The same thing I cannot do with this. So record dot set name is not there. You cannot change once the parameters have been set. Record creates an immutable class that you cannot change. If I'll go into this record, there is one final keyword which is already present whenever you are creating a record. So that means this record class cannot be inherited from any other class. So that means no child class of this record can be there. Also all the variables that you can see here, you can only get the value of it, but there are no setters. This person with Lombok is not a final class. That means some class can inherit this class, but if I'll talk about person with record, this is final by default. That means you cannot inherit it into the another classes. Okay. Let's talk about the second difference between the Lombok and record. Whenever it comes to Lombok, you can have n number of parameters. You want to add one more parameter, something, but this something will by default come into all argument constructor, as well as getters and setters for this something will be provided. But if you are not passing it into here, then if I'll try to create similar type of instance level variable. Now this is not possible. If you want to have instance level variable, then you have to define it inside the parenthesis, and that's it. So if you want to pass this something, then you just have to remove it and you have to pass it here. You can have n number of static parameters if you want to. I'll say public static string, and then you can say something, you cannot have any variable, any instance level variable outside of this brackets. It's a static. You just have to write the class name and then something will be working for you. I'll just remove this something because I don't need this in my Lombok. It was just to show you what exactly is the difference. I'll print and I'll try to print person with record dot something, because this something is a static level variable, so you can access it with this. Now if I'll try to run this again, you will able to see all the things. Let's talk about the constructors. If I'll go into this record class and now you want to put some kind of check whenever you are creating an object of this person with this record, you can put a check. You will say person with record, and after that you can put a check here. If id is less than 0, then you can throw a new exception, illegal argument exception, person id cannot be negative. If you want to put a check onto your constructor, you can make one custom constructor by yourself, and then after you can set the value. This dot name equals to name, this dot id equals to id, and you can remove this part because it is not at all required, and you can also remove the value that you are assigning. This will also work. So whenever the constructor will get called, by default it will check whether the id is less than 0 or not. If the id is less than 0, it will just throw this exception and it will set the values as well. So you can put some checks. Also, records are by default final, so you are not required to type this final with your record. I'll go into this Lombok, where only by providing this annotation you cannot put any check inside the constructor. I'll create one more person with record, but this time I'll pass this id as -1, and I'll print. You will able to see that it is throwing this exception. So that means by default the assignment is happening. So the name, whatever name you are passing here, that name will get assigned to this name, and id will also go here. So the assignment is by default happening. Also, there is one more thing. Whenever it comes to Lombok, you can extend any class to it. Let's say you want to extend one more class, that is possible with the Lombok, because internally it is not inheriting any class. But whenever it comes to record and whenever you extend a class, at that time it will throw you an exception. That is, no extension of this class is not allowed. This is giving you an exception because record is a special kind of class which is already extending record, and you cannot extend multiple classes to one class. So that's why, because internally it is already extending one class, you cannot extend any other class to this class. But if you want to implement another interface, that is possible. So for example, let's say I want to implement serializable, so it will not give you an exception. So that means you can implement n number of interfaces, but you cannot extend one more class to this record. That is not possible. So yeah, I think that is the basic difference between Lombok and records. Thank you for watching.